Several high-profile celebrities have commented about how AI is an existential threat to the future of the human race. My name is Jim Connor. Welcome to Game Changers Silicon Valley. The AI topic has many directions. Today we will look at one of the most controversial areas of AI, which is the effect of AI in education. My guests are Poonima Malhotra, an AI developer, and Baron Cannon, a high school educator who is a leader in using technology in the classroom. Poonima, Baron, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Let me start by asking you, Poonima, about how OpenAI and chatbot are structured. I've been confused by this topic. I see all these bots and I see OpenAI. Can you give us an overview of that structure?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me over. So, OpenAI has taken all the data which was present on the internet, used that to train what we call models, which are advanced algorithms which can take this information in and create their own patterns and understand how to make of it, and then they can answer questions. And ChatGPT is an application of it in a way which understands those models and using natural language, like natural language means what we all humans speak in our day-to-day life. And BARD is another implementation which is on their own data models that we have. We call them like large language models, and that is one is by Google. The other one is like Microsoft and other companies have invested into OpenAI. So in a way, they are different.
Yeah. So I'm really fascinated because I do see the tech giants. You'll have you've got the Microsoft-backed version, if you will. You now have a Google-backed, and they've scanned the entire internet, brought all the data together in some massive area, tagged it, and then they write this chat in front end to pull data out. So you got two databases so far, two big ones. I shouldn't say database, two models.
Right.
How many more do you expect? I mean, is there going to be?
There are actually many more already. Like Facebook have their own models called Llama. There's another by called GPTJ, and Hugging Face is a company which helps to deploy it. And there are a lot more that all these companies are doing. Like IBM have their own. They have not made it public for everybody. Like Watson was there, which was pretty much these. But now with OpenAI, it has become more accessible to local public, right? Like you and I can access it and use it.
Today it's free, but tomorrow it may not be free. Is that right?
It's not really free. Like they charge $20 a month, which is not too much. Yeah. But I'm sure they're looking at ways to monetize it further.
Okay. So you're a guy, Baron, who is paying for the paid version of it.
I am.
And you're also a prolific and a well-regarded high school teacher at a Catholic school, private school. And I thought I'd ask you, because you're the counterpart to what's going on in AI in the public, but you're the guy that's in the classroom. You see what the students are doing, and there's just so many issues I'd like to ask you about, but how is the engagement? Is it across the board?
In terms of who's ahead of whom here, it's actually been pretty interesting with ChatGPT. I was in, along with my colleagues, an interesting situation where we were more aware of it before the kids were, right? Depending on the school site and their policy towards it, they would have even introduced it to their students. In terms of who has access to it, the ways in which they're using it, the ways are many and varied.
Do you teach students how to use it, or do you leave it to their own devices?
To a certain extent, it's a lot of experimentation with the way it could be applicable for them. I know the way that the students tend to use it naturally is using it as an authority. So, for example, once they're able to see that they're able to compose a, maybe like a long prose essay of some kind with it, they're more than happy to put in the prompt to a school assignment to have ChatGPT-4 or what have you spit out a response and for them to copy that down. One of the interesting ways that I've tried to use it with students has been, if they have a problem, if they have some utility. Like I mentor a lot of business students, and a fascinating application could be, well, let's say I want to promote my club or I want to promote a product, and I have a specific target persona that I want to try and attract to my product or club. ChatGPT, here are the people that I want to attract to my club or to my product. Give me a go-to-market strategy. And true to form, thump, 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 thump. It's, maybe you put up some flyers around your school, or maybe you try and promote posts on Instagram, or, right? So it's incredibly responsive from that standpoint, not only for what I think a lot of want to naturally use it for as an authority, but also for utility.
So I want to go back to you about his use of their persona. You have quite a bit of experience using personas, developing personas, and use them for your clients, basically, because you're doing web services in addition to that. Tell us a little bit about what a persona is and how it gets used.
So in a marketing jargon, if I may say, we call it ICP, which is an ideal customer persona or customer profile. So where we define, like for a client, we'll say, okay, from whom do you get the biggest business, right? Like who are the kind of people you want to address to? And then we look at them, we define a set of things, like which could even be the demographic, age information, their where they're located, like lots of things, like even things like what their political bent is, depending on who the client is. And we actually come up with we define these personas, and then we use this as an input and give it to like ad services and say, we want to bid on people who fit this persona. And this information is coming from your search engine, right? Like whatever you're searching is being used by the search engines and building those personas for you. And then we tell them, I want to show my ad to somebody who fits in this in this set of skills. So similar to what your students are doing, right? Like they define who they want to target, and they just say, okay, go and target, like to a high schooler, I think X could be more attractive versus a business person who's in their 40s, right? So you just define the personas are and how do we attract them.
So this persona thing is kind of interesting. I have some relatives who have exposed their entire private lives on Facebook and social media. And my sense is that today advertisers will use that information. So my question is that something that you see in your private high school?
They are absolutely concerned about this. Actually, we were just talking about a recent development with Snapchat, which is something that adolescents love to use, mostly for communication, not just for sending, pictures back and forth. What appeared on Snapchat on their feed about 2 weeks ago or so was a pinned chatbot called My AI that they can engage with on a text interpersonal basis, and it with the students that I've interacted with, it really freaks them out. Because on one hand, they have the same kind of concern. What does it know about me? What is it not? They've asked it, for example, direct questions. Do you know where I am? Oh, as an AI model, I do not. Where's the nearest McDonald's? Oh, it's right down the street. So it's really interesting. There are apparently, to your point, holes in the models that and the ways in which it interacts with certain applications.
I've got a concern now. You're an AI developer. You love AI, I think,
Yes.
And here's my concern. I read this recently, I think in the last day or two, that these models are getting so conversational that people are starting to share the most intimate details of their life, their medical problems, maybe their social relationships, their intimate relationships, lots of stuff going on, because it's a conversational mode.
Right.
And if I've got something I'm having a problem with, I might go, yeah, I can talk to ChatGPT because it's private. Not at all private.
No.
So I wouldn't want to be solicited for my about details in my private conversation with ChatGPT. Is this valid, and should we be extremely careful about it?
Just like we should be very careful about putting our information out in the public, this is another platform which we should be careful about, right? Like what we tell, what we not tell, things like that. And secondly, when we are talking about our personal things, I say, like, the information that comes back from ChatGPT, we should not take it as an ultimate authority. We should verify it. There's no guarantee that this is a correct information. And lately they've started putting disclaimer at the end, like if you ask about a health concern, right? Like I got some tests done and I got the results back. I just wanted to see what does ChatGPT think of it. So the prognosis it gave was actually correct, what my doctor said, but still they put a disclaimer, like please verify with the health provider, right? So we should not totally like believe what they are saying, we should verify what they're saying is correct or not. And at the same time, we don't know how this information is going to be used, like this is going to be sold to later on, right? Like initially we thought when search engines came in, right, like monetization was not part of it. There was no ads many years ago, right? Then they started monetizing it. We don't know how this will be used. So I am very skeptical in that sense. I don't share much personal information, and I don't know if ChatGPT has an incognito mode. I haven't discovered it yet.
That's where it doesn't track you, or you can't track anything about you. But you have to log in to the ChatGPT engine.
Yes, exactly. So I don't think it's there yet. I would not share my information.
I wonder if we're going to get to the point that you pay an extra fee for the privacy, meaning it's not tracked or guaranteed, but I don't think there would be any guarantee that it would hold up, put it that way.
It's going, like, it might be encrypted, it may be an information which, like, it follows the PII rules, right? Like, the information will not be saved as Punitma's information, it would be saved as an XYZ, like I will be anonymized and saved.
I think the big question most people who are watching, and my question is, AI is in high schools and colleges and maybe even grade schools or middle school. Now, I'm a little bit involved in education, and I see the challenge that I went through of learning to write and express my ideas. Very hard to do that. And I have a suspicion that if I had chat or AI available, I would have never learned how to look at 3 sources of opinions, take my research, and come up with my position, because ChatGPT would do it for me. And therefore, I would just skip that whole learning process, which is not the easiest thing in the world. Do you see that happening?
Absolutely. I think this is one of the key challenges with AI broadly, but especially with ChatGPT in terms of how it's able to produce long prose for us. If you're talking really about students' ability to think critically about content that they're engaging with, and then also being able to articulate well-crafted ideas that can express that analysis, I don't think that there's going to be a way for us to do that except to isolate for that. I'll give you a metaphor, to your point. Perhaps we have a similar fear about the calculator. The calculator is able to produce all of these arithmetic calculations for us, and children will, not be able to learn how to calculate. Now, to be fair, we are dealing with numeracy issues in education more broadly, but I think if going forward we want to maintain these skills of analysis, we're going to have to isolate that in the way that mathematics have in education. So more specifically, after the calculator came out, you see like worksheets, for example, that have these large blank spaces where students must now show their work. Right? It's insufficient to simply give an answer. You have to show me what you did in the lead up to it. Not so much as a way to maintain academic integrity, but really importantly to show process. Right? Thinking process is just as important as the outcome in an educational context and as much as in a life context.
Can you bring that to your classroom, that idea?
I think so, and educators already are, right? So they're isolating for these certain steps within the process. I'll give you an example. The biggest threat, at least now, that ChatGPT has posed to our students producing long prose is them just being able to enter in, I don't know, the subject of the paper and having the paper just be completed for them. So now, I heard from a public school colleague of mine that at a recent professional development meeting, something that was recommended was, have your students write handwritten notes about a particular topic, and then take those same handwritten notes, prepare a draft, then actively have them put those notes into ChatGPT and have it create a well-framed, essay for
Structured.
you. Exactly. Yeah. Right. And then therefore you're going to go back and you're going to revise it, and you're going to turn in everything. Don't just turn in the final assignment. You're going to turn in all the steps in between, and you're going to weight more of the grade to the analysis that they performed early on, the notes that they took. So you're focusing more on the process, less on the outcome.
Good. Very good. So Punima, I'm going to ask you a question that's been haunting me for a while. So I write a blog. I write a blog that'll go with this show, and I write a few things on social media. And I used ChatGPT to write my. I put the topic in. I put a couple points in. I said, okay, write me a blog introduction or write the blog in general. And frankly, it came out pretty weak to me. And the reason is I have a particular style, a little provocative style, which I like to have, a little cutting edge. This is not, flower smelling. This is going to be a little more make you think you're either going to like it or hate it. But right now the AI engines don't do that. They don't look at my style and say, well, given your style, I posted it. What I want to do is say, take my style in this particular series of blogs, 3 or 4, and write the article in this style. Do you think that's a viable feature on the horizon?
Actually, not only viable, we as our own product are building that into
your product.
Yes. So we have a generative AI product which we launched, and you can give prompts and it does it. So then the second phase of it is for each user, you can give your inputs. You can say, this is my style, give us 5, 10, 20 proses. This is how I write. We will actually train a model based on your data, and going forward, we will be using this fine-tuned model to generate content for you. So right now the problem comes is why they cannot know my style, because they've taken everybody's style, right? And they've learned from it. So, but there is a way to say, you know what, I am Jim, I write this way. Please follow this style. So this is called fine-tuning the models. And this is what we are working on. And we have seen really good results, it follows my style of writing. It follows to the point not only my level of vocabulary, because I don't use big words. I try to stay with small words. There are people who want to use more difficult form of English. There are people who have a little bit not just vocabulary, their style. Some people write in active voice, like you say, you like the provocative style. So we have seen actually good results with that. So we are launching it very soon, this new one.
Very good. What's the name of that? And we'll talk about it later, but what's the name?
So blueastral.ai.
Okay. Great answer there. So I have to ask you a bigger macro question.
Please.
Across the board, education, high school education and so on, but we'll say, in your world, what is the general concern, maybe fears about AI disruption of students and maybe disruption of teachers?
Oh,
a big question, I agree.
Big question, but a great question, because I think you're right to ask about the positives as well as the negatives, right? The positives are myriad, right? They potentially enable us to be able to focus more of our attention on those deeper emotional connections that educators, right, human educators, are able to make with their students. And more of, I'll say, the paperwork broadly gets to be offloaded to AI, right? A metaphor from medicine that I heard recently is that something on the order of 2 to 3 times as much time is used on paperwork by doctors and nurses than on their patients.
2 to 3 times.
2 to 3 times is what I heard. And so now, when I look at education, from kind of doing a little informal poll of my colleagues, they think it's about 50-50. Right, in terms of all the time that is spent when you are grading, lesson planning, taking attendance, and what have you. So there's an incredible opportunity to offload some of the work that is otherwise mundane or unnecessary for a human to do, right? And focusing on those deeper human connections. But I think the real problems can potentially come from a broader way around issues like inequality. I would, as others are, actively call on governors of different kinds to restrict, not to a certain extent, AI development broadly, but on ensuring that it is being used in a way that is appropriate and ethical and equitable. Whether it's how we discern who has access, right? To the point made earlier, right? Myself and others pay $20 a month to access ChatGPT. A lot of our students can't do that, right? The onus will be on governments or on private schools to potentially designate this as a public good that needs to be provided free of charge to our students in the same way that we do iPads in schools that are one-to-one technology devices. But similarly, also, when we're talking not just about ChatGPT, but more broadly about the general intelligence, the artificial general intelligence, or AGI, that is going to be possible in the future, we're going to be looking at a completely different landscape economically. And if our task as educators, especially at the secondary level, is to prepare them for lives worth living after college or what have you, how is the economy going to be different? How will we have prepared them to engage with artificial intelligence in a way that is meaningful, that creates gains for all of us? Right? How is all of this shared? These are really deep questions that need to be discerned now, because it is here right now.
You're still working through those questions.
I think to a certain extent, yes, but I think I'm starting to see the early innings of what is going to be necessary in terms of who is at the controls, I think, right? Imparting our own ethical principles on AI. How do we, to use the AI principle of alignment, how do we ensure that these artificial intelligences will behave as we do, work on our ethical principles, not, for example, go rogue, if you will, to utilize different technologies that could not just harm us physiologically, but perhaps manipulate us, coerce us. It's an incredibly deep conversation that it needs to be explored more and more.
That comment brings me to the realization we need a second show.
I think we do.
Yeah.
Because when you open it up, I want to ask, well, okay, what about politically correct, politically incorrect, practices in schools? So we obviously don't have time for that. So I'm going to, we'll call this a conclusion of this show. And I want to thank you both, Poonam Malhotra, for joining us, and Baron Cannon. And let me ask each of you to give any follow-up information to people in the audience or the viewers would like to contact you. What is yours?
Yes, they can reach me at punitma@blueastral.com, and they can go check out blueastral.ai, which are our platform, and there are forms they can reach out to. Yeah.
Very good. And Baron?
Yeah, for me, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so just using my full name on LinkedIn is good. Yeah, I think that's a great one. Yeah, Baron Cannon. Yeah, it's certainly if anyone, especially in the private sector, who's working with AI, who wants some connection to education, I think, but to the point, right? I think more educators should be involved in the development of these, especially as they need to be aligned with our principles and, frankly, just good pedagogy. Right?
Great. And I wish you both every success going forward, and I will look forward to a follow-up show.
All right.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for joining us in this episode. If you gained some insights into AI and its potential use, share this show with your network. You can view all shows at our website, gamechangers.tv, as well as the podcast at Game Changers Silicon Valley. We look forward to your continued interest in upcoming shows.